This video is sponsored by the Breast Form Store.
Hey there folks, it's Vera Wylde. And I actually have a few videos that I'm planning in the next coming weeks or month or so addressing related topics and having to do with presentation, what one may or may not choose to do to affirm their gender despite what expectations might be. So before I can get into any of that though, I feel like it's time for me to reaffirm and make something very clear that I have said before, repeatedly over the years, but I feel like just needs to be said very clearly and very simply. I'm not a woman. And I don't mean that in some kind of transmedicalist fashion, because I haven't had certain surgeries, nor do I mean it in any kind of turfish way, that because of the way that I was born and being assigned male at birth means that I can never be a woman. Obviously, I don't mean that. I mean, I don't identify as a woman. I am gender fluid. I am femme-leaning, frequently, at least in video format, presenting feminine. But my pronouns aren't she, her, they're she, they. Outright masculine is incredibly rare for me these days, but I certainly have more middle of the road, non-binary, just not really feeling like much of anything gender-wise sort of days. Those still happen. That's still part of who I am. And there's a couple reasons why I feel like this is worth mentioning. Some has to do with just sort of annoyed amusement that I get from people, transphobic people. And then, just for the sake of clarity, for those who are indeed trying to support me. When it comes to the transphobes, I won't lie, as repetitive as it is, and as much as I'm very tired of it because it's one of only 3 or 4 things that they say to me in basically anything where they find me. When a transphobe goes all, you'll never be a woman, you're not a woman, I don't reply it much anymore because it's not worth engaging with these people even sarcastically, but in my mind I go, yeah, I know. I know I'm not a woman. I don't identify as a woman. Of course, they're never going to look into me enough to understand that. It's not like they would validate my gender fluidity and more non-binary identity. I suppose it's worth clarifying as well that a trans woman, and trans women are women, a trans woman identifies fully as a woman, by and large. And so, someone saying that they are a trans woman may have been assigned male at birth, but they now identify and wish to be referred to and viewed as a woman, and as nothing else. Now, while I no longer desire to be viewed as a man, because, really? I don't need to, or even necessarily want to be viewed wholly as a woman. That doesn't encompass everything that I am. Again, I do understand the tendency to think that I am a trans woman. Again, I present fairly femininely, especially on this channel. I present incredibly femininely, but I'm going to do another video digging into presentation a little bit more down the line. As I said, I've got sort of multiple videos mapped out. But the thing with folks who wish to support me is I will sometimes find myself in an awkward position where people will be defending me in comments, coming at people, attacking me, going, you need to respect her, she's a woman. And I'm like, but hey, I'm not though. And like, it doesn't hurt. I'd certainly much rather be mistaken for a woman than a man in terms of how I identify. Like, I don't mean in a passing way. I know you can tell I'm trans. I not only don't care, I kind of like that. But, again, topic for a later video. But this kind of came to a head a few weeks ago on, I believe it was International Women's Day. And I actually got shouted out on a post that was, I think it was listing only trans women, but it did include me. And it felt just weird. I don't normally truck with the idea of, things like trans people occupying women's spaces and being where they don't belong, except in my case, I don't identify as a woman. And while I, certainly would hope that I'd be welcome to some degree in spaces like, say, a frickin' bathroom, just so I can use it and go about my frickin' day. Broadly speaking, especially something that's a big shout out to, lend your support to these women on International Women's Day. But I felt very out of place. And again, I get it. I understand why it's very easy to take a surface level look at my content, my presentation, here or even over on Council of Geeks. Break Room of Geeks is where you'll occasionally find me at my most casual and my least done up. But I mean, I've still got the hair. These are still there. And it's a very understandable mistake to simply assume that I am a woman. And again, if someone's going to make an assumption, I'd much rather they assume that than assume male. Transphobes assume male, but that's, they forcibly presume male because they refuse to presume anything else. But if you're going to defend me, if you're going to praise me, I certainly won't say please don't, but try and be careful of the manner and the wording by which you do it, because it's awkward for me to have an identity defended that isn't actually the identity that I hold, or to be praised as part of an identity that's not what I actually am. Again, I appreciate the sentiment. I'm not, spiteful or bitter or mad at anyone who is going to praise or defend me, but happens to do that. But, it is weird for me from my standpoint. And I suppose it's also worth noting, I am not going to rule out the possibility that I will never identify as a woman. I don't think I will. I think I'm always going to be some sort of genderqueer, gender fluid. But I can't say with an absolute degree of certainty that won't happen. Because a number of things about my journey have already happened that I had previously thought, or may even have said somewhere, that I didn't want or didn't need. Things like beginning a hormone regimen. Things like dropping the masculine pronoun and requesting not to be identified as he, him at all. I went for a while accepting all pronouns. She, he, or they. I dropped the male pronoun a couple years ago now, I think. And if you'd asked me a year before that, or 2 years definitely, I probably would have said, no, I'm not going to do that. Don't worry about it. So my own journey being the meandering thing that it is, which I've talked about in multiple videos, my own progression through my own transition and my own sense of self has gone places that I didn't think it would. And I have to allow for the possibility that it will do that again. Just on the off chance that any folks are wondering, well, if you think you might one day identify fully as a woman, do you ever think you will start identifying more with your masculinity again? And while I'm not going to say with an absolute 100%, I'm going to say with a 99.99999% certainty that I'm not going to drift back towards my masculinity because I don't miss it. Moving further away from my masculine identity and from how I used to consider myself, I don't feel like anything's missing. I do think losing my more non-binary sense of self, my more in-the-middle sense of self, the days where gender, I hardly know her. Sorry, that's terrible. But if I didn't have that, I think something would be missing. But I don't know. Down the line, who knows? But drifting back towards the masculine is something that I can't really wrap my head around. Like, at the barest bones of maybe that would be a thing. Like, okay, I suppose, but it doesn't make any sense in my head for where I am, how much happier I've been as I've leaned into my femininity, which I suppose is why I'll allow the possibility that I'll keep drifting further and further in that direction. But right now, at least, at time of recording, my name is Vera. I am trans. I am trans feminine in that my transition has brought me more into a feminine space and I primarily present feminine. I am absolutely trans. I no longer identify and have not for a while as the gender I was assigned at birth. And I've gone through multiple things in my life to assist in that shift, from laser hair removal to a hormone regimen to simply presenting publicly and being out. So I'm absolutely trans. I am trans feminine, but I'm not a trans woman. I am gender fluid. And while she is what I'm used to hearing the most, they pronouns are absolutely acceptable. There are few very important people in my life who primarily use they, them pronouns, and that's nice too. So, just something to keep in mind. And it has been, as I said, this weird meandering journey for me. And while I have my own assets now, I think part of why I may have clung to my masculinity as much as I did before is because at the end of the day, 6 years ago or more, I would take off whatever makeup, whatever wig, or whatever else I had, and I would be masculine. So I wonder if part of why I still identified with it for as long as I did was because I had to. It was there. I couldn't pretend it wasn't. And I've talked before about not having the severe dysphoria that was pushing me away from the masculine. But I think even back then, I often felt freer presenting more feminine, with wigs, with makeup, and with the kinds of products that you would find on the sponsor of today's video, the Breast Form Store. The Breast Form Store carries a wide array of products to help people feel the most themselves that they can. Whether it's something that you only want to do on occasion, or if it's a first step towards a longer journey, you will find products that will help you here. From foam to silicone to specialized underwear, a wide variety of shapes and sizes. If you need something to help assist you in your own feminizing journey, you'll probably find it on the Breast Form Store. And if you use the coupon code VERA10 and the link down in the description, you can get 10% off your order, and you'll also help out this channel. Thanks again to the Breast Form Store for sponsoring this video. And thank you for watching. As I said, I've got other videos in a somewhat similar vein that I'm going to have planned for a little bit down the road in the next couple weeks. I mean, I've several videos planned. I've probably got some other product reviews I'm going to be doing. So like maybe over the course of the next couple months to get all these out. But there will be more coming down the line. I plan to talk about just presentation more broadly, and also talk about being trans with no intention and no desire to engage in surgical alterations. So these are all going to kind of springboard off of this topic, but I thought before I could talk about any of that, it's probably best to establish the baseline of where I'm currently at, because the rest of what I'm going to be talking about will probably make more sense with that understanding. So thank you so much for joining me. I hope that you have a wonderful, wonderful day, a wonderful week, month, year, life, if you can. And remember, through all of it, that you are beautiful, you are valid, and you are loved.